I began maybe what's your first memory of something. There is no one way to begin. It's arbitrary. But you want to find, what do you want to find? You find, I suppose the word is quintessential truth, the essence of a truth. Now, a truth isn't all facts, as my friend James Cameron always said. A truth is more than a simple fact. A truth is a person's life, a way of looking at something, what made that person do that, what made a society do what it does. And so there's a memory involved. One word, is one phrase. You know, John, as you're playing a nice, easy, slow blues here tonight, I think to myself, you know, we've known each other some 30 years, John.
Oh, yeah.
When did you as a kid, first hear the blues?
I was about 9, and I heard the blues. See, my dad used to have 2 or 3 speakeasies.
This was where, John?
That was in Chicago.
Here?
Yeah. And I used to listen to the guys play, you know.
And so you heard the music. You heard it.
I'm the only man fresh, crying Mr. Postman. Any man for me today. Crying Mr. Postman. Is there any man for me today? No, don't get killed.
Memory's always flawed, so it may not be, it's not statistically accurate. It may be a Tuesday instead of Wednesday that a person's talking about. But that's something that person remembers, and the fact that it is remembered, and others remember it in another way, but that same phenomenon makes it truth, and makes it, as far as I'm concerned, part of history.
I do remember when I first came here, I would start noticing that in the morning, all the black people were on the trains going north to work in the white folks' kitchens and houses, and in the evening, they were on the train going back south. Segregation is worse in Chicago than I ever knew in my life.
When I come here, what I did, I had to work on the north side on Sheridan Road in them hotels and laundries and being a maid, so.
Any man for John, yeah, crying Mr. Postman. Is there any man for me?
You know what we're witnessing is the deterioration of a symbol. When we once walked so proudly down this street and said, this is Black America on the move and I'm a part of it.
Yeah, you know, Vern, I'm thinking to just say that. I want to go back to that once upon a time you just talked about. On that corner. Once in a while I interview a person. I remember this woman, and she's played the tape back for me because her kids were there. And as she listened, suddenly her mouth opens wide, her eyes, she's, I never knew I felt that way before. That's a great experience. That if it happens to come out pretty fair oral history, well, that's fine. I hope it does.
We come next to the Pulitzer Prize for General Nonfiction, and I ask Studs Terkel to join me. This prize is for a distinguished book of nonfiction by an American author. It is awarded to Studs Terkel for The Good War, an oral history of World War II as recalled by Americans who lived through it.
The Good War is the latest of Studs Terkel's best-selling oral histories, recording, through the voices of its people, aspects of American life. First, there was Division Street, about Chicago itself, where Studs has lived and worked since the age of 12. Then came Hard Times, about the Great Depression, a book about American dreams, lost and found, and another, Working, a collage of American attitudes to the jobs they do. Studs himself has been a radio soap opera gangster, star of his own 1950s TV show, Studs Place, a disc jockey, jazz critic, Italia Prize-winning broadcaster, and, in his own memoirs, a humorous and provocative witness to the times he's lived through.
And there's a memoir, Talking to Myself. This is sort of a story, not of me so much, of the times when I become a participant reluctantly. I didn't mean to become, I love to be the observer on the sideline, but somehow I get caught into it, and so I'm a reluctant participant. Now, it occurs to me that I see it here, that Talking to Myself is also in Chinese, and as I see this, and I say, my, this must be fascinating, if cryptic, you know. And once in a while, I'm always talking to myself.
In fact, each day, Studs goes off to talk to other people, both famous and unknown, on his morning radio show. Through it, he's become one of Chicago's institutions.
Never that. There's Laura over there, and that's a dog doing his work. And generally, that's the greeting I get daily.
And how did you begin to work in radio, which you've been
It
helping?
was a depression. I was on the WPA Writers Project, part of a New Deal, the whole idea of governmental jobs that were very good and served a real purpose. And I joined a theater group, accidentally. I didn't mean to act, but I joined it. And it was in some plays, and the director said, why don't you audition for gangsters and soap operas? There are many of them in Chicago, and so I did. This is my, as you see, my Spencer Tracy hat. Very often I walk down the street with this hat, and people stop me, Spence, where you been keeping yourself? I said, oh, just saw Catherine Hepburn. But then when I came to this station, well, TV came along in 1950, Studs Place, and then I got in trouble, the McCarthy days, so I'm out of jobs, one day home listening, and I hear this FM radio station, and I hear the voice of Woody Guthrie, a recording of Woody Guthrie. Well, no one in Chicago, for that matter, no one in the country played Woody Guthrie on radio except me, when I was a disc jockey in the early days.
I've been having some hard traveling, I thought you knowed. I've been having some hard traveling way down the road. I've been having some hard traveling, hard rambling, hard gambling. I've been having some hard traveling, Lord.
And I call up this station, WFMT, and I says, you're playing Woody Guthrie. And that's when I said, could I join your stations? I have no money.
At 98.7 FM, this is WFMT, Chicago's fine art station. 10:15 tonight, in a broadcast from the 1984 Salzburg Festival, Herbert von Karajan leads the Vienna Philharmonic and guest pianist Christian Zimmermann in works of Schumann and Brahms. Tonight at 10:15
stamped my visa,
on
put it
International
back through,
Festival.
and I said, Balshoy Spasiba,
It's
which
exactly
means thank you
3
very
p.m. in
much.
Chicago, and now
And then I
it's
said, did I say that well? And he said, very good. Enjoy my country. And this was my first encounter with this evil empire. I always precede anything I say, 3 weeks in the Soviet Union doth not an expert make. But this is what happened to me. And when I was challenged on a couple of issues, I said, you could very well be right. I was told I was a flaming liberal. I was accused of that. I said, to the contrary, I'm a conservative. I want to conserve life. I want to conserve the future and conserve this planet and its environment. That's what it's all about.
Got you covered. That's it. You can't top that. Barbara Wren and Sharon Tennyson. Thank you very much. And I suppose I could say Das Vidanya, too, couldn't I?
Oh, das vidanya. Balshoy spasiba. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Studs. And you've been doing 5 programs a week for 30 years?
Right, 33 years. It began an hour a week, but shortly thereafter, within a few months, it became a daily, 5 days a week program.
And in your book, you use the phrase, I tape, therefore I am.
Yeah, well, that's my takeoff on...
idea of listening.
I call myself a neo-Cartesian. You know, me and Richard Nixon, you see. He taped, therefore he was. You might say he taped, therefore he is not. You know, but I tape, therefore I am. Because taping is so much part of what I do. But I have to watch that, too. To watch that doesn't become a technological phenomenon, you know. But in any event, back to the subject at hand. Where was I?
Memory. Do you see this as your kind of collective memory?
This is a collective memory. You know, talking about collective memory, I suppose this is a sort of amateur Bush League Jung at work. You know, speaks of tribal memory.
But what's the balance here between people who are involved with social questions?
No, there are quite a few people involved in social questions, but if you were to really take a inventory here, I imagine most would be in the field of the arts. Sometimes I read short stories. It might be a Flannery O'Connor or a Chekhov, or I might play jazz or folk music. You know something? This fits. R.D. Lang. And what is the subject? Schizophrenia. Marilyn Horne, perhaps some consider her the greatest of contemporary singers today. And she was a very lusty figure, as you probably know, and marvelous for idiomatic talk, but she is the opposite of the pretentious diva. Quentin Crisp, well, that's a subject unto itself, isn't it? Danilo Dolci, now, he knows a little English with an interpreter. He is considered the Gandhi of Sicily. Danilo Dolci was the architect from Trieste who knew something is wrong and terrible in Sicily, the mafia control, the peasants living in feudal days, feeling wholly impotent. He went down there, and somehow he gave these people a sense of self-worth.
What do you think your life would have been before the tape recorder?
A wholly different world. I'd have been a radio disc jockey, I suppose, if I hadn't had a tape recorder. Maybe using a pencil, but I'd have been sort of wrist-weary as a result. The tape recorder, what's so funny about the tape recorder, I'm terrible mechanically. You know, I can't drive a car, I can't ride a bicycle, I can't swim. My coordination ain't there. Now, mechanically, I'm less than most retarded of people. And here I am with a tape recorder. I haven't the vaguest idea how it works. Yet, it is my right arm. That's what Alex Haley did in Roots, didn't he? He went back to the source where his people came from, Gambia, in West Africa, and he saw these oral historians.
Is Alex Haley here?
Oh, he's here. Well, let's look it up. We haven't found Martin Luther King yet. We gotta find Haley. King is nice. This is Three Stooges. This is Abbott and Costello. Martin Luther King. I gotta remember that. King.
It doesn't really matter.
1960. That's right. Now here's Alex Haley. H. A-L-E-Y. H-A-L. Alex Haley. 1238. Down here. 1238. Oh, it's down here. So where's 1230? Down here. It would be at the bottom, wouldn't it? Here it is, 1238. I hope it's Alex. It says Martha Lear. Well, that's 1338. Well, I'm really good. See, now I have a difficult time with arithmetic. I forgot to tell you that.
What guides your choice?
Taste, I suppose. My feeling, my own feeling.
Do you think it's more art you're interested in, artists or writers or social
I think
questions?
It's talent, of course. But talent with something else. What distinguishes a great artist from a great performer? I suppose the word is an all-encompassing humanity or aspect of it. What makes a great actor or a great playwright would be that. Samuel Beckett has it. And Beckett, to me, is very affirmative.
Have you spoken to Beckett?
I wish I did.
98.7 FM. And at this time, we welcome you to the Studs Terkel program, which is heard on this station each weekday morning at 10 and Sunday nights at 10:30. Studs' guest this morning is jazz tenor saxophone soloist Bud Freeman.
But you know, when everybody thinks that jazz came from New Orleans, and yet Chicago really had the clubs where jazz was supported. If a man was an excellent player, such as Bechet, Louis, King Oliver, Jello and Morton, they came to Chicago. They had to leave New Orleans because they couldn't make a living there. When I made a film with Amos and Andy in 1935, and on either side of the bandstand there were two big white pillars, and I was behind one of them. It was with Ray Noble's band, a British band, great band. And all you could see was my right foot. And Dad alerted the whole neighborhood and brought them all to see the film, and they said, "Where's Bud?" He said, "That's Bud's foot."
But as I listen to you play and talk, your vitality, 78, touching 79, which is really minor, because there's something about you and the vitality and the curiosity and the artistry. I'm thinking, you were my very first interview. You, the very
37 years ago.
And 19...
There's no, you know, I don't identify with age.
I know.
I never have. And neither do you. No, I don't mean to imply you're old. You're much younger than I. But
I'm 72 going on...
You know, everybody's much younger than I, but I don't think of that. And I just like the idea. I can't wait to get up to play the horn or to read a book or get out and see people, being the gregarious ham I am. And I love to walk. I walk about 5 or 6 miles a day, no matter what the weather's like. And I'm just having a ball. And I hope to keep this thing with me until, as Ben Webster said, man, I'm going to play this horn until they put it on top of me.
Somehow, as I look through the window, I think of early Chicago, and that's Lake Michigan, and it was on these shores the city grew. The great commercial city, Chicago, is its name. It's the way the first singing commercial ever went. I look at the possibilities in a city. If ever there were the archetypal America, it's this, and the deferred dream that all sorts of people talk about. I suppose you want to capture, greedy as I am, as much of the history of the city as you possibly can, and yet, how many dimensions can you cover? Chicago, boom, boom, boom. Even though you say, oh no, there's a secret pride underneath. There's something macho about it. Chicago respectables are secretly proud of that reputation. Chicago is no more corrupt than most large American cities, but it is the big daddy of corrupt cities. It is the one they all look to. It's the papa. This is my favorite news communique. Heading, confusing police battle. A police spokesman said, the battle began when the bandit gang, disguised as policemen, challenged a group of policemen disguised as bandits. Now that to me tells me what law and order is about today. It tells me what civilized behavior is about today. And the line of demarcation between disorder, anarchy, and law and order, and civilized and uncivilized behavior today is a line of demarcation that is hardly visible. 1968 August, time of the Democratic Convention, Richard J. Daley, Mayor of Chicago.
Convention will the Sergeant at Arms enforce order in the convention?
Imagine this scene, Lincoln Park, Chicago. Thousands of young people were gathered to protest our involvement in the Vietnam War. We're warned, get out of the park, it's curfew. The kids decided to stay. And James Cameron and I were about the only two middle-aged people around and about. The tear gas zoomed at us, and we all retreated, hawking, coughing, cursing, spitting. A young, long-haired, blonde kid next to Cameron and me who were stumbling along said, "You two old people shouldn't be here." Cameron, of course, who found this as natural habitat, being whenever there was trouble, looked up indignantly. "How dare you, old!"
Do anything. Hey, leave him alone.
It's a curious memory of Chicago to have. It's really pitifully stupid in a way because it suddenly reproduces for Chicago the image that it so sedulously cultivated in the 20s of that of being a lawless place menaced by all sorts of forces of violence and gangsters and Al Capones and people like that. Now the mirror image of that is emerging. It's a town where law and order is so sedulously preserved that you you have to get half-gassed in order to preserve it.
We all came scurrying into the lobby of this Lincoln Hotel. It was our sanctuary from the tear gas coming from the outside. It was jammed. Mostly young kids, outrageously dressed, were kind of scared, worried about the cops and the clubs. And there were the journalists. From all over the world they were here. There was Allen Ginsberg, the poet, going, Terry Southern, the novelist, was there. Jean Genet, the French playwright, was there. And James Cameron, my colleague, was saying, watch Genet. He is observing the scene with the seasoned eye of a connoisseur. The old patrons of the hotel were watching us with wonderment. And at that moment, a young cop came rushing in with a club raised. He didn't know what he was doing. He rushed out again. And as I think, as I look back 17
and they
years
thought they had a story. They were interviewing these guys on a park bench like it was the end of the world when these guys come in clear across the country looking for a beef, and they got it.
You were here back. He's on the phone. He's on the phone.
What's that?
Busy. You were here in '68.
I sure was, but
What do you think?
I was too young to realize what they were fighting for at the time. I just saw all the confusion.
Hey!
Broke our windows and the demonstrations, but I wasn't, how would you say, politically involved to know what it was about. I wasn't a hippie in 1968.
How did it look, as you look back, what do you think?
Hold on a second.
Yeah, just a minute on the phone.
I'll tell you how it looks. You know how it looks? How come these guys are in positions now where they weren't before they've taken down all the money? The one guy's a stockbroker, the other guy's a dope peddler. Huh?
You know what?
Are you kidding me?
You talk about these guys making a score, it's over. You are jealous.
Jealous.
Hey, no, I think you can't say that.
It's all about this there. You see, it's this. It's all about this shit here. Everybody wants it. They all got their own bullshit. You know what I mean? They all lay the bullshit down that they don't want it. Don't give me that fucking shit.
Then you have an opinion openly expressed. The horny-handedness, the bigness, the hugeness, steel, the skyscraper came into being here, the architecture, the nature of the music. Some call Chicago a seedbed. Sometimes the artists who grow here move elsewhere because the market is there. But seedbed might be a good way of describing the city. Nelson Algren, to me, was able to describe Chicago in lyrical terms, the city west of the billboards. His best writing might have been in the short stories, Neon Wilderness. They might have been in a prose poem of love-hate for Chicago called Chicago City on the Make. It might have been in Never Come Morning that first brought the attention of Simone de Beauvoir, whom you got to know rather well. As gossip columns would say, they were good and dear friends for a time. And Sartre liked him very much. But here's Nelson also was sardonic. The question comes up about Nelson leaving Chicago. And he's moved to Patterson. The question is your reaction. You describe Patterson as a boom town.
Yeah, well, it is. It's booming in welfare. It's almost 60% now on welfare. It's past, it's way past Newark and Trenton.
I don't know, but certainly there are a number of people, quite a few people in Chicago miss Nelson, quite obviously. And
Maggie Daly, Mervyn Cuppensat. I've formed some very firm friendships here. No, Chicago won't miss me. I mean, I went up to the public library the other day. Let's see, I've written 10, 11 books, and there isn't one there. They are in Tokyo. They're in the public library in Tokyo and in Paris and in about 10, 11 cities. They're not in Chicago.
Chicago, which gave the world its first skyscraper, and America some of our greatest artists and poets, has long recognized that art, beauty, and open space are essential and proper elements in urban living. You have demonstrated once again that Chicago is a city second to none. Your new Civic Center Plaza, with its unique and monumental sculpture by one of the acknowledged geniuses of modern art, is a fitting addition to a city famous for its creative vitality.
Picasso offered a gift to Chicago, his gift to this lusty city. And that's when Mayor Daley spoke, and there were songs sung. But I went around with the crowd with my tape recorder, just Chicagoans gathered around. Some were city employees whom Daley said, "Be there," and they were there, because God had spoken. What do you think it looks like?
Something that I was eating pickles and ice cream and things for dinner, and I dreamed it.
I think it looks like a woman of justice, perhaps.
I think it's a piece of scrap metal that sells for $12 a ton.
I think it's pretty nice, and Mayor Daley did a good job here, and I think he's the best mayor we've had in the city of Chicago.
I don't know what it is, but
the money a lot better off than this way.
They could have wasted the money a lot better.
Sure.
I disagree. I think it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful bit of artistic.
You don't like it?
I don't like it. I tell you
You don't like the
frankly.
color either?
Not even the color.
Well, from this angle, it looks like a lady. Look from this way. See? Look. Cleopatra in a sense.
What do you think, Father?
It seems to me that it is symbolic of the confusion of the present times society.
Well, to me, it represents that Chicago will always be progressive and keep rising to, keep rising.
What do I think it is? It's a steel monstrosity. One thing in its favor, it won't burn.
I don't know, we've got everything in the big windy city, that's for sure.
Some would call Chicago a Janus-headed city. There are two heads. One is Jane Addams, the dream, the social worker. The other is Al Capone, you see? This is the irony of Chicago. It is the architectural center, you might say, of the world. Here was the Frank Lloyd Wright and Louis Sullivan lived. So you have this tremendous vision. At the same time, you've got that heavy-handedness that Theodore Dreiser wrote about, of heavy money, grotesque, pounding down the vision. What sort of neighborhood was this till about 20 years ago?
It was filled with people from Greece and Italy, Mexico, southwestern United States. It was poor, gutsy, lively place.
And so where are we now? This is an island.
It's a little island.
You were born in this building?
Right next door.
Next door, in this very restaurant. You're the chef and the owner. I know you love making this food. Accidentally, in later years of your life, not that your life is maturity now, but in later years, because before that, there was another dream, wasn't there, that you had?
There was a dream to save this neighborhood, and to keep the small community of Italians and Mexicans and blacks and the other nationalities, the Greeks, together, as we'd been for how many generations of when the early immigrants came from Europe.
And then what happened to that community?
The politicians, Mayor Daley and businessmen, decided that they had to take this area, locate a university in a central place, and just tear it all down.
Why did Florence Scala's testimony begin Division Street?
It began because if ever there were a perfect case, Florence, a young, ethnic, is the phrase we use today, housewife in the community, trying to save that which is historic, continuity, and rich against outside money, is a metaphor for the country. It's Chicago's sense of loss, specifically this area sense of loss, I think is representative of a society's sense of loss because of an absence of past and memory.
Sad, the first Greek church was built here. The first Italian church, built by Irish Jesuits, was built here. The Greeks did their own building. The old Jewish bathhouses, the old synagogue on Ashland, all those things had to go. A part of the real history of this city.
Do you think of yourself as Italian or American?
You know, I still think of myself as Italian-American. I do. My loyalty is right here. My love and affection for the past is in Italy. There is this tie that is difficult to describe. This restaurant is to make some kind of an expression that this is Italian in an American setting, and that people can come in here, and I hope it transports them maybe a little bit.
And Studs, what is your background?
I came from Russia to New York, but as a small child, Chicago. So Chicago is my enclave. Chicago is my identity. Chicago, USA, but forget USA, Chicago.
And can I ask you whether calling yourself Studs Terkel gave you a sense of being all-American rather than being Louis Terkel or Louis Terkel?
I don't know. I think that was a capricious thing. I think it was, I loved the novel of James T. Farrell, Studs Lonigan, back in the mid-30s, and the name stuck. And all sorts of connotations. I say, would they were so, but they ain't. In any event, Studs is kind of a street name. I kind of like it, but it stuck as sort of like a fly-to-fly paper.
I really don't like the name Studs too much. I like the name Lewis. And that's his name. This is reality to me.
And what's Studs? Myth?
Myth.
Myth.
This is Studs' place. Any minute, there'll be a story happening here. Funny thing, there always is when we drop in. So you just settle back and come along.
Yeah, but you're going to sing the lead. So I'm going to sing. We'll sing the lead. You just give it the umcha, huh?
Sometimes it's painful in that it's not quite as good as you thought it was at the time.
Here he comes now, coming through the door. Welcome back home where the sun is on the floor. La, 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 la.
And yet there's a crazy quality to this program and to others that were known as TV Chicago style. There was an air of immediacy to them because the dialogue was improvised, made up by the cast. Myself and 3 other of my colleagues. I was proprietor at a little restaurant where working people came in.
Jake LaMotta, Ezra Charles, Babe Ruth. We need here a good bust of Ludwig von Beethoven.
Gee, sorry you didn't appreciate our little presentation. But did you have a good time last night, Ted?
Scintillating. Got this book of the opera here, all the stories, all the libretti complete.
The who?
Plural for libretto, stories of the opera.
We're talking about 1950. TV was still new. Before it became the hot sales medium it is. Therefore, we were freer.
When the saints come marching in, come marching in. When the saints come marching in.
There was Chet Roble, the piano player. He was the big city blues. Win Strachey was singer of folk songs, and he was sort of, you might say, the self-educated hobo cleaning around. Then Beverly Younger played the waitress. The mother wit was hers.
Grace, since when do you serve the soup de jour and the pièce de résistance at the same time?
Oh, but I like it that way. This looks wonderful.
Try it, it's good.
And this was being networked coast to coast? Or
It was
just in
on the
Chicago?
network coast to coast. And then me and my big mouth, I get in trouble a lot, talked a lot, And so it was knocked off, but then it was local for a long time.
But was it knocked off for political reasons? You know?
Right, because at the time it was McCarthy time, and I'd sign all sorts of petitions and I wouldn't retract. They said if I retract and say I was duped, well, I could be on. I was called, the phrase they used then was hot property. I was hot property. But I thought it was also something else, and so I got in trouble.
When the saints come marching in, come marching in. When the saints come marching in.
At the time we did it, we didn't have any idea that it was representing all aspects of our country, but it was in a crazy way. How many times a day do you think you sit at a table?
About 100. A lot.
Yeah.
What was the last one?
Last was the Good War, just World War II. In a book called Working.
Working Life. What story is it about? Chicago?
Yeah.
It's about, that's exactly what it is about.
Old, early days, today people remember.
Different people's opinions.
That's it. Ordinary people telling of their lives.
In Chicago.
All the books.
Reflections, like, it really is a very good book, because, you know what's good, and I don't know if this is a compliment, you can pick it up and you can read it at any part.
That's right. Well, no, that's true.
It is, because I used to read it sometimes at night. I'd just pick it up and I'd read here and I'd read there, you know, it's not like, it's not like you have to read it in sequence or anything. It's a good book.
The people like you.
Yeah.
Had I run into you, you might have been in it.
Oh,
no,
that would
it's
be
true.
great.
Because
we're sure that
I think everyone has a story to tell. And look at what childhood's like, memories are like, how it's changed, your own dreams. That sound could be only one guy at the piano, Art Hodes. I thought, Art, for the next hour as you're playing a blues, your thoughts, your reflections, and your music. Memories, of course. When I say blues to you, Art, I know you're thinking about that music and concentrating. When I do say blues, what's the first thought comes to your mind? First memory, perhaps?
Hard times. Playing the blues in a barbecue place. 48th and State in Chicago.
That was
no
when?
money. That was during the Depression.
Back in the early 30s? When did you hit the road? How old were you when you hit the road?
I married when I was 15, and we traveled around. There was no work in this country. People were absolutely starving to death. Some of the times during the Depression, when we were all starving, black women fed us. And at the same time, we're taught in church, in school, that just because you're a lighter skin tone, that you're better. And then a little friend of mine gave me a copy of Grapes of Wrath. And I read it, and I thought it was the most beautiful thing. It was like my life story. It was like being blind and all at once you can see, because it just showed me a whole new side of myself and my family. I had never seen us as a people. Poor people are very fragmented. They don't tend to identify with each other. It was like somebody was writing about me and about my grandmother, Molly Bell. And because the lady that played in Grapes of Wrath, she looks so much like my grandmother.
Is that your grandmother on the photograph?
Yes, that's Molly Bell.
Looks like Jane Darwell, the actress who played Ma Joad.
Did you, when you first came to Chicago, ever think you were really coming here to stay, or did you think you were just coming here for a while?
Just for a while. I'm still going back home every day, or at least once a year.
When you saw part of your life story in Studs' book, how did that make you feel about your own life?
Well, first, I'm amazed that anybody could care, what happened to me. But Studs does such a wonderful job that it gives me a sense of who I am, of who I was, and my relation to other people in this country.
I am convinced the kind of person I find or look for is in every community, that one person or two, anywhere in the world. They're called by her first name or his first name, whom they know all their lives, but that added insight is what that person has. And how to find that is like a gold prospector looking for gold.
And how do you value that kind of insight against the insights available in literature and books and all the other things you have around you in the world.
This is in no way meant to demean or to put down the literature. On the contrary, books are important, and the work of scholars is, of course, is what keeps the world going as far as traditional history is concerned. But there's a history that has been underrated or taken for granted or not used. And that history of those anonymous many.
How did you meet?
How we did meet is a story. It was during a hectic year, of course, 1968,
63.
63 was it? See my memory.
I met you on the train going to Washington.
Is that it? Tell me about that some more.
Emma Tiller and I were going to the March on Washington.
Emma Tiller's your old black friend.
Right.
Yeah.
And she introduced me to you. You were taping the people who you put on the record.
We're talking about the 1963 Martin Luther King-led march
Yes.
to Washington. How'd you get to be so that you're on that train to Washington with black and white people and poor people? How'd that happen?
Oh, I don't know how it happened, but I know when I first became aware of my own racism was when the bus boycott was in Montgomery, Alabama. I was living there at the time, and I saw Reverend King knocked down and beaten, and I saw grown men pick black women up and throw them into the buses to try to force them to ride. I saw things that I had never seen before. I like to think that I was human enough that when I saw some of the violence that goes along with racism, that I understood what it had done to me and my people, Southern whites.
And what do you think it was about you that made you change and hasn't made other members of your own family change in the same way?
I don't know. I truly don't. I wish I knew.
Whoever was there can never forget that moment. Of course, there was the address, Dr. King. His plea for sanity for mankind, for liberation of all. But preceding at his request was Mahalia Jackson.
Well, soon as I can see Jesus, the man that died for me, the man that bled and suffered, you know he hung on Calvary.
I heard an old 78 record. One of those, I remember the song, it's called Move On Up a Little Higher. Now what does this do? I put stop. In any event, Mahalia had a way of singing that immediately hit me hard. And so I played her records again and again and again. And Mahalia always says that she says I introduced the white audience to her. Because you realize she had a tremendous audience. I didn't put that thing out. I want to watch this.
That is why I've been seen. That is why I've been shot. Because I know what it's all about. The goodness oh, my God, your Lord, my God.
Mahalia had a way of not only soaring as she sang, but you too flew.
And did she try and convert you?
Oh, every time. You see, well, what happened? I was hopeless. I was sort of being cowardly, I say, an agnostic, though I'm deep down an atheist, I suppose. Mahalia knew this.
Hallelujah! Come on, cherry.
Often we kid around. Well, Mahalia, you know, I ain't gonna talk because I don't want in any way to have your song against my words because I won't stand a chance. She says, Mahalia, and after she'd sing one, maybe City Called Heaven, or Didn't It Rain, or Joshua at the Battle, I'd say, Mahalia, you got me going. And she used to take off on us. If anybody could save me, you can. She says, if I can save you, Studs, I think we got it made.
Of the Lord, mighty has fought out that none like him is down. Come on, cheering and sing for the goodness of the Lord.
That's another thing that puzzles me. I don't know, this thing, it's peculiar. When I'm on the stage and on television and working with white people, they just hug me and love me and say I'm so wonderful and I'm so great. And then when I'm walking down the street like an ordinary citizen, they don't recognize me. And when I go into the department store in the South, I can't get a sandwich, I can't get a bottle of pop, I got to stand, I can't even get a cab. I don't understand this. What makes people act like that?
Corner Martin Luther King Drive, right here, Vern. 47th Martin Luther King Drive. The year's 1985, Vern Jarrett. What's your first thought?
Let me tell you, I have a great emotion about this corner because this corner is, in fact, a terminal point of the great dream that so many black people envisioned, and I was one of them, prior to World War II. And I can recall standing right here, Studs, and feeling that I had arrived. 1942. This was the vortex, as it were, the center of black emotions about the future.
See, what I like about Vernon Jarrett is he brings us south with him.
Yeah.
He brings the small town memory and the big city sophistication. And it's that combination that's almost the key to Chicago, by the way.
I discovered that Chicago was also a racist city. But 47th Street said, that's all right, because we're moving ahead. And on Saturday night, you saw your own people looking prosperous. And I felt for the first time that I had a future. I remember buying my first suit, a double-breasted, chalk-striped gray suit. Right here, and it was an outlandish suit, but I didn't know I was in Chicago and I was being big time. I bought my first hat at a place called Birch down here, a big woolen hat.
Now, you were the kid. You joined the Navy in the Great Lakes here in Chicago. You're talking about 1942. 43 years ago, from a town called
Paris, Tennessee, and I lived in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I went to college.
Now,
never been north before.
What did Chicago mean?
Well, this is important. The meaning of Chicago to black people. Chicago meant that regardless of how badly you may have been treated in the South, the violence, the fact that your parents couldn't vote, and you had to witness all of this humiliation, that was always Chicago, where you were equal, where you were free.
Pacey. Going to Chicago.
Going to Chicago, sorry, I can't take you.
Yes, that's true.
Funny, that's the one Jimmy Rushing used to sing, too.
And then Joe Williams.
But it's not accidental that kind of blues was written, because Chicago and black people from the South, I suppose, that was the goal, that was the grail, wasn't it?
Yes, Chicago was really the place to be, as you well know, because you had such a hand in producing so much of that sound, especially like when I first heard Big Bill Brunsey.
Yes, it's so hard to tell.
Big Bill Brunsey, for my money, the finest blues singer of our time. He himself came from Mississippi originally, and then went to Arkansas, and worked there as a field hand. He came to Chicago. He was about 20 years old. This became his home. Bill, he seemed to be the non-adjusted man in our time. That's a crazy phrase to use, but Bill refused to say, I will cut. He refused to cut his cloth to fit the suit of our time, if you will, if I can make sort of a metaphor here. Bill was on the stage of any nightclub. A lot of young kids today would walk out on them, cool kids. They were kind of ashamed, Negro kids, ashamed of their heritage, let's say. Other kids were, the music was so raw, his blues.
Her picture still on my dresser, and her gown is still on my bed. Her picture's still on my dresser, and her gown still on my bed.
He was a guitar player that really could play the guitar, and he was a songwriter. I think he wrote about 300 tunes. One that I'll never forget, and this was daring back then, is when he sings, if you're white, you're all right. If you're brown, stick around, and if you're black, getting back, way back.
Yeah. Oh, brother, get back, get back, get back.
Yes, of course, you've heard him hundreds of times, and he's quite a guy, and I love the way his wife at that time could make red beans and rice with a ham bone stuck in.
Big Bill Broomsey would often recount a moment of humiliation, and he'd laugh, like the time they refused to serve him at a bar. But they wanted to serve us, the three white colleagues, and we all walked out, of course, but it's not. Bill started laughing, and you know, there's an old blues song, laughing to keep from crying. Or I'd say these days, laughing to keep from raging, you know, or laughing on the outside, crying on the inside. That's what the blues is about. It's based on truth.
Me and a man working side by side, this is what it meant. They was paying him $1 an hour, and they was paying me 50 cents. They said, if you was white, you'd be all right. If you was brown, you stick around. But as you black, oh, brother, get back, get back, get back. I built the country, and I fought for it too. Now I guess that you can see what a black man have to do. You say that you white.
Poverty has taken over, whereas at one time this corner represented the fulfillment of full employment for blacks during the war.
You know, we began this conversation kitty corner across the street. It's funny, we covered 43 years, it seems, of what? Of a dream deferred?
Certainly, the dream has been deferred, and the sad part about it is the feeling of permanency. This is something that black people never experienced since Reconstruction. That everything that happened to us down south, we said it's not permanent because there's always a Chicago and a Detroit and a New York and a Philadelphia and a Pittsburgh. There are jobs there. There's equality there. You can be a human there.
It's all
and
hope.
now someone has thrown a blanket over that dream, and they boarded it up like the street corner. For a man who's approached 60, part of my dream has been fulfilled. But what about those behind me? What about them?
Get back, get back, get back.
I suppose one of my themes, without thinking about it too much, is what is it like to be a certain person, ordinary so-called, living at a certain moment in history in a certain circumstance. And you know that Brecht poem? There's a certain poem by Brecht that I like. I forgot. It's about who built the 7 gates of Thebes, he asks. Well, who did? You see, when we say the pyramids, the first word comes to mind is the pharaohs. They didn't lift a damn finger, you know. There was anonymous slaves who did it. But, of course, we look at the carvings on walls and you see the pharaohs. They all look as immaculate as Nancy Reagan, you know. But the poem goes, when the Chinese wall was built, where did the Masons go for lunch? And then comes the big one. When the Spanish Armada sank we read that King Philip wept, the King of Spain. King Philip wept. And here comes the question. Were there no other tears? And that's what it's about. That's what I like. Were there no other? Who were these others, these anonymous multi-millions who really made the world go round?
The tragedy is now that no one's working in steel in this community. And tremendous amounts of unemployment. Up to 4 or 5 years ago was the largest steel making area in the world, let alone the country. All the mills along this side of the Calumet River here are basically working at a very short pace. Not even half of the workforce that they had just a few years ago. Questions at hand there that we have instilled in us in this country, one of the tragic notions that by virtue of someone owning a factory can either operate that factory or close it down at their economic whims. I think I have to advocate going beyond that, that I think people that own places such as this, International Harvester, for example, owe something to the community in which they operate in for 60 and 70 years. And they owe something just more than a job on a given week to an individual. That they owe something to the community from a social sense. They owe something to the community from a psychological sense. And God knows that they owe something to the community from a materialistic sense. And if you look at this community, they've taken everything out of the community and put nothing back into it.
Ed's dream is the American working man's dream. It may have gone slightly askew, but Ed still works at the fulfillment of that dream. That's why he's a labor leader.
What is the percentage of unemployment around here?
In the community, probably averaging about 22 to 25% total.
Almost depression levels.
Higher, ironically, than the depression in 1932 and 33 for this community.
Free enterprise means putting Muhammad Ali in the same ring with a little flyweight and saying, may the best man win. Free enterprise, a ghost town's now springing up. The men of steel now become the men of rustiness. And what happens? I see this now, those same faces there in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and there, as I remember, as a young man in the 30s. And so, without this sense of history, there is no present. Every now and then, I'm called upon to say, to talk or say something to students, you know. Young people, I know, when I hear young people, we like Ronnie, I wonder, what happened? What happened? You know, has a mass lobotomy occurred? No. What happened? You know, I feel... Yeah, October 3rd, 1984, so it's a month before the re-election of that brilliant man we have in the White House today. You know, I don't know where do we find these guys? I don't know, but there it is. We have a way of things. Life wish or a death wish. It's almost a decision you have to make. But it involves intelligence that we have. It involves a thinking and a sense of history that I'm talking about. So I must tell you what I did during the Depression. I went to law school, and then I got a job as a gangster. I was a gangster in radio soap operas. The one I remember best was Betty and Bob. I was always threatening Betty's mother, played by a very elegant-looking actress named Edie Davis. I forgot all about it till election night 1980, and there's President-elect Ronald Reagan and his wife, Nancy Davis Reagan, and reference to her mother, the new mother-in-law, Edie Davis. It was my Edie Davis whom I threatened, and that's when I had what I call my epiphanic experience. I was Saul on the road to Damascus. I was struck by a blinding light. And this was the revelation. You can no longer tell where soap opera leaves off and life begins. I shall not at any time during this brief talk use the words family, flag, God, or country, nor shall I use the phrase standing tall. I am your president, not your physical education instructor. Yes, indeed, my friends, I have faith in your intelligence and your awareness. I feel confident in this faith having met so many of you, I look to you and your concerted intelligence for guidance. We can, as Martin Luther King expressed it, live together as men or die together as fools. The choice is ours. I have faith we will choose wisely and that we and the others of this planet will prevail. I thank you.
I dreamed I was in the White House.
How'd I do, Ed?
Sitting in the president's chair.
Here are my constituents.
I dreamed he's shaking my hand.
How are you?
He said, Bill,
Vote
I'm so
for me.
glad you're here, but that was
Vote
just
for
a
me,
dream.
and I shall come true for you.
Lord, what a dream I had on my mind. And when I woke up, baby, not a chair there could I find.
Thanks for dropping in on us, folks. We came to you from Chicago.